It's been a pleasure working with him. I wanted to pick his brain today because there's a lot of you who'd like to know, well, what is it that he's done to have such phenomenal growth? So, James, are you there?
I am, mate.
Thanks for coming along, mate. How are you this morning? I know you're busy.
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, tired end of the year, but no good. Still got a bit of energy. Still got a bit of energy to go.
You do. Good. Now, can you just tell everyone, how old are you, mate?
33.
And you're on how much? You've still probably got 100 or 200,000 to reach 4 million. Is that right for the year?
But I don't know exactly what I'm probably on about 3.5, 3.6, I think, at the moment. Okay. Just shot 70 sales.
Good. Very good. And you've been in real estate for how long?
10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years ago. And you work the Eastern Beaches market.
Yeah, Eastern Beaches and Parkside markets, sort of specialising anywhere from like Bronte, Tamarama, so like Kensington, Randwick, all the way down to sort of Maroubra.
Good on you. And I want to say thanks for jumping in today, JB. I really appreciate you. You've got a team of 6.
I do.
So it's yourself, Nikita, and 4 associates?
Both kids, yeah. It's sort of differing. Differing sort of experience levels and ability sort of things. So I've got a couple that are sort of 4 or 5 years and a couple sort of 1 or 2 years. So differing abilities.
Yes. I'm really curious, what were the first that first 6 or 7 years? Because I've got a lot of people listening today who are associates or who are standalone agents. What were your first 5 or 6 years like? If you think back to that before you had a team as a standalone agent?
Yeah, it was tough. It was a lot of grinding, a lot of rejection. I think like how most people probably feel at the start, like I see it with people in my office as well. I think, like it was a grind. Like I think, early starts, late finishes, sort of, a lot of no's, competing. Obviously my market, you're sort of competing against, and particularly my price point, you're sort of competing against the best agents in the market. So, we had to sort of come up with a way to try to, differentiate ourselves in that part of the market. But that was tough. It was, that first 5 years was really hard. We probably wrote about the same amount of money probably for 4 to 5 years without really seeing too much growth as well.
So would you say, looking back at it, that there's always an apprenticeship phase, which is a real grind, and you don't really see the rewards?
Yeah, look, I think so. Like, I think I always went into it with the approach that it was going to take 5 years. Like, and even now, like, I'm always sort of looking ahead 5 years. I'm not looking at where I am now, but where I want to be 5 years from now. And everything I'm doing now, I'm trying to set as a building block for the next 5 years and where I want to be in 5 years from now. So I always had that approach. I think I started when I was 23. I pretty much went out immediately as a comm-only agent at 23, 24. I didn't have any sort of real, learning or mentors or anything like that. So I think at that time it wasn't about making money at 23, 24. It was about sort of where I want to be at 29, 30. And sort of I wanted that to then compound, and which is has started to do over the last couple of years.
It certainly has for you, and well done. You deserve your success. If we go back to those first 5 or 6 years and knowing what you know now, what would you have done? Like what was the main prospecting you were doing in the first 5 or 6 years, and what database work were you doing?
My database was pretty, look, as I said, I didn't really have any mentors. I didn't learn off anybody. Like, I went out sort of by myself immediately. I had a team straight away. So I had an associate and an EA. Like, we were sort of lucky in the fact that I was probably doing enough in terms of GCI to sort of warrant taking on an assistant and an associate immediately. Prospecting wise, like, database was probably non-existent. It was probably too scattergun in the first 3 to 5 years. Like, we were selling everything from 2-bedroom apartments in, Coogee to, $20 million houses in Vaucluse. There was never really any intent around what we were doing. It was just more trying to make money, pay the bills, and sort of create profile across the broader eastern suburbs. Yeah. I think a lot of my work initially was just trying to build relationships. I've never door-knocked a house in my life, like, ever. I've not door-knocked one house. I've never really cold called, but it was always about trying to build relationships with buyers. It was sort of after that, when we got pretty serious about it, probably about maybe 6 years ago, when we started to target like 2 or 3 different areas, that we started to actually build a database and sort of groom that database. which today, we're pretty consistent around the activity that we're doing.
Yes.
And we've obviously, particularly in part of that market that I spoke about earlier, we've built a lot of profile, which makes things a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier as well, obviously.
So you've noticed that it has gotten easier as time goes on.
It gets enjoyable. Yeah, it gets Yeah, like I said to my team yesterday, we've already got, I think last year, we came back in January to about 9 listings. I think we've already signed 12 for next year, and they're all 4 million plus houses between 4 and 12 million. And I said to my team, we had a team meeting, I said, it's actually starting to feel like it's enjoyable because you're going into listing appointments, you're winning listings, you're not competing on things. So it gets to a point where it definitely gets easier, 100%.
Good on you. Good on you. Tell me, if you go back just a little bit, JB, would you suggest to new agents area specialisation straight away, or would you just say take listings wherever you can get them?
I think you got to take listings where you can get them. I think that then helps you to pay the bills, and I think it allows you to market yourself as an agent. I think what I did initially, and it was just sort of a product of the business I was in, it was everywhere. And I never really targeted an area. I would say take what you can get. And I'm pretty vocal about that within my business. Take what you can get, but be smart about it. And I think that money that you get or the outcome of those listings, I think you then got to target I think it's very important to target a specific area. I think if I looked at what I would do differently, I would have targeted 1 or 2 areas immediately rather than trying to just do everything. But I would have taken every listing on and I would have chased every opportunity, because that would have allowed me to reinvest that money back into myself, building profile within a certain part of the market.
Yeah. So what I take away from that, guys and girls, is James is saying when you start out, you pretty much have to scrap for listings wherever. In the ideal world, you want to get focus on a core market where you understand the market and you have product knowledge and you get a better run in that market. James, just tell us about your database work, if you could. I'm going to get to buyers in a minute, but what databases did you start and have back then, and what does that look like today?
Back then, I didn't realize this. I didn't really have a database. I remember we used Box and Dice at the time. They came in and said, they started looking at our database and they said, this is probably the worst database I've ever seen. It was non-existent. I didn't have addresses. There were just people's names and numbers. Today, we're very diligent around what we're doing. So we've targeted a couple of suburbs, and then on top of that, then sort of moved or transitioned into secondary suburbs off the back of that. Yes. When we've created a profile. So we've been very diligent about sort of, collecting people's addresses. Once we have those addresses, we're big on passive prospecting as well. We're obviously very proactive in our approach to prospecting on the phones. I'm probably still making 100, 150 calls a day. Yes. And the same as my team. But then on top of that, emails, text messages, direct mail, letters. So we're consistently in front of people. And I think, when you get to that point when somebody's ready to sell, you might have not had a lot of communication with that person over a period of time, but they've been getting your letters, every lister just sold letters. They've been getting your monthly updates. They've been getting your texts. They almost have to give you an opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So guys and girls, just keep in mind, and for those who've just joined, James is saying he's never done a door knock. James is saying he's never done a cold call. And if for those of you who listened to Maclay's webinar 2 or 3 months ago that I did, Maclay Longhurst, very similar. No door knocking, no letterbox dropping for Maclay either. So, and also both agents, both Maclay and James today, have said, the first 5 years, it's scrapping, it's getting data, it's taking listings anywhere, it's giving great service, it's following people up, it's a lot of rejection. But there is a tipping point, JB. There is a point.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, 100%.
When do you feel you hit the tipping point?
Enough, and you build the right habits. So I think, I keep saying it. There's a guy in my office. He's, Alex Smith. He's a really successful 28-year-old. But you can see, he's in that part. And I can see it, but he can't. He's in that part of his career where I was 5 years ago, and he's getting listed, probably selling 30 properties a year. But you can see that the tipping point's not far away. He's just got to keep doing what he's doing day in, day out, and it happens because it's compounds. The work that you do just compounds.
Yes, so it takes time and it does compound. Can we just talk? So that's database. So you didn't start with a strong one.
No.
but you then developed that. What's your buyer practice like, mate?
It's gotten a lot better this year.
And when did, sorry, two questions. What's your buyer servicing practice, and how has that developed from what it was to what it is today? Sorry.
Look, I actually probably, there was a period of time I probably dropped off a little bit, or it was just too probably focused. But I think probably like 5-6 years ago, like 5-6 years ago, it's sort of like I was pretty strong around buyer servicing practice. I was like talking to my hot buyers probably every day, like buyer sellers every week at least, really identifying what they missed out on, what I could then maybe transition or position them into. We were doing a lot, because I didn't have a lot of profile, we were doing a lot of off-market sales as well at that point. So my buyer work was really strong. I think it's one part of my business that I probably dropped off a little bit, like when we started to get busier, which, you know, which I shouldn't have in retrospect. This year, it's definitely gotten better. So like particularly around buyer sellers, like I'm mainly servicing either people that have missed out on a property and that want to buy like tomorrow, that are transactional or urgent, or people that have something to sell. And when they've got something to sell, or people that are ready to buy, like we had a couple of off-market sales last week, as you know, like they'd missed out on 2 other properties, made offers on other properties. So we serviced them, showed them something off-market, they bought within 24 hours. So we've gotten a lot better at identifying that probably over the last 12 months, but mainly buyer sellers and those sorts of buyers.
Gotcha. Okay, good. Can we, JB, jump to how do you, like, what's important? What do you tell your team about open houses and buyer inquiry that comes through? Like, how do you treat that?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. Like, I was having this conversation with Ed from my team yesterday. My open homes probably need to get a lot better personally. Like, it's something that I've identified, and like we probably identified as a team. Like, I'm probably not as diligent as I should be in that part of my business, which particularly next year it's going to be a big focus for us. Yes. I can, you know, like I think after a long Saturday or a long week, I personally can, you sort of stand at open homes, it's like sort of the end of the week, I probably need to get a lot better at that. My follow-up to that is very strong, like on a, you know, Saturday afternoon, Monday, like identifying what they've looked at, where they're coming from, you know, what they've missed out on, how many properties they saw that day, whatever. But I think that's definitely a part of our business that can improve, and that will help take us to the next level as well.
If a young agent, James, said to you, and I'm going to come back to the listing part because people love talking about that. If a young agent said to you, mate, how do I get in more doors? Okay, which I hear all the time from the associates and young agents. How would you, if a young agent said to you, James, how do I get in more doors? How would you respond to that?
I don't think it's. I probably differ a little bit. I don't actually think getting in a lot of doors means much to me. Like, I think it's about identifying actual opportunities. I keep saying this to my team. Like, my team want to, you know, take me to every price check, every opportunity that's not an opportunity, right? I think it's more identifying actual opportunities and then really working with that person, be it buyer, seller, buyer, or owner. Yes. I think those opportunities come. Like, I think the opportunity to get in more doors come. You've got to build profile first. I think you need to, you know, pare it back and go, okay, well, how am I going to build profile? I'm going to build relationships with buyers. Those buyers then go on to sell in, you know, 2 to 5 years. I'm going to get that listing. I'm going to then market that listing and give myself profile off the back of that listing. And then the opportunities then come. Like, I think 2 years ago, we're probably doing 150 appraisals a year. I think we're probably going to do like 450 this year as a team. Like, it just comes off I think profile is the main thing that you need to build. And I think off the back of that, the opportunities to get in more doors come. So I'd scale it right back, get back to doing a lot of buyer work. I think, look, expired listings, all that sort of stuff, I think is also very important for people starting out. That was really important to me. And it's something that we could definitely improve on as a team. Like, I remember my first ever sale was a $4.5 million sale in Dover Heights, and it was off mark. It was an expired listing, like back 10 years ago. So it'd be like a $12 million sale today or a $10 million sale today. Yes. So I think those opportunities are important. If I was starting out, look, you know, it's good to get indoors and build relationships with people through that prospecting channel. But I think like that's something I'd focus on probably a little bit later down the line.
Gotcha. So guys and girls, James is saying that trying to get indoors is one thing, but that might not necessarily be a good opportunity. James is saying rather than try to get in as many doors as you can, build relationships through buyers, through the lead agent you work with, through open homes, through other people through the office, through old callback books, through whatever. Build relationships which will set you up for down the track. Is that right, JB?
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And then it just becomes, you go in, like, I reckon half the listing, or not half the listing, say 20 or 30 listings that we've sold this year, like, we haven't had to compete on, because they're people that I said to my team earlier today, like, there's an opportunity for a block of apartments I got called into on Monday night. It's a $8 million block of apartments in Coogee. I didn't even know the guy owned the block of apartments, and I've been servicing him for probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, trying to sell his penthouse that's around the corner. And he called me the other night. I said, "Are you meeting with anybody else?" He said, "No, I want you to sell it in January." Like, it's just off the back of that relationship that you then helps you secure those listings.
Yeah. Tell me about your database. Like, now that you've got a decent site, how many owners would you have on your database, JB?
Oh, look, I think because we service a pretty big portion of the eastern suburbs, it'd be pretty significant. Like,
what's is it 2,000? Is it 3,000? Is it 6,000?
No, we probably have 8,000, I reckon. Gotcha. They're like house owners. Like, look, I'm just out my part of the market. We're sort of not really too focused on apartments. It's just we've naturally drifted into selling more houses than apartments. So we're sort of servicing that part of the market.
So if you've got that many people on your database, which you've built up over 10 years, how are they hearing from you?
I think through, so of course, as I said, we service a big part of the eastern suburbs. We're selling, 1 or 2 properties a week in a certain area or a certain suburb. Off the back of that, we're sending a text out to the majority of owners in that particular part of the suburb to keep that level of profile in the market. We're sending a letter. We're calling the street. We're calling the surrounding streets. They're getting our monthly newsletter. They're getting almost all 8,000 of those owners will be getting like a monthly letter, like with our sales for that month and the volume of sales that we've achieved in that month. So, like, I live in Clovelly.
Sorry.
Like, I live in Clovelly. I get like a letter from Alex Phillips almost once a week. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like we've tried to then mimic that and then build on that as well.
Success leaves clues.
Yeah.
So if you're then, when did you start sending an email newsletter to your owners?
Only when you told me to.
But when was that? Just for everybody. How long ago?
Probably 2 years ago, I reckon.
I think it was about 3 years ago. And and so you've added that to your, practice.
Yes.
What have you noticed about that?
Well, look, I think when you look at the analytics of it in the back end and you see how many people open it and engage with it, like, it'd take you a long time to make that many phone calls. Like, and I think
how much it's interesting to send?
Nothing.
Not 1 cent. And that could go up to 8,000 people. And that's your listing.
I think roughly about 2,000 to 3,000 people are opening it every time we send it out, and they're 2,000 to 3,000 people that own a home in one of our core markets.
Yeah, pretty. I mean, that's how much technology has changed.
Yeah, 100%.
You and me, for example, can deal with our community.
It's important not to only rely on that as well. Like, you've got to have those other prospecting channels as well, and forms of prospecting and the layers of prospecting. Like your calls are one, your texts are the next, your letters are the next, your monthly newsletter. It's just like, I think if you're doing everything and you're doing everything right and you're doing it over a long period of time, like, this is I see it in my office. A lot of people do it, but they do it for 6 months and then they stop and they haven't had a good run, so they can't afford to send the letters or whatever it is. You've got to do it consistently, and you've got to go in with that mindset that it's going to take 5 years, or it's going to take 10 years, but it will happen. It will compound, and you will create that profile.
Yes. So, James, if a young agent, male or female, or an agent came to you and they were starting out, how long are you saying how long are you saying from start date to getting good traction in a market could take?
Honestly, it's probably going to take like 7 to 8 years, I reckon, realistically.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen before that. I think it depends what good traction is. Like, good traction is writing $1 million, but that's good traction. But I think, and that can happen within 5 years, right? Or even less. But I think to really start to enjoy it, like, I probably had the best balance I've ever had, like, work-life balance this year, I reckon. So I'm actually starting to enjoy it. Like, I'm leaving work earlier. I still get in early. I get in at 7. I do what I have to do. I'm incredibly focused in that time. Like, I'm not moving around or stuffing around. I'm on the phone consistently, but I'm home every day like 5:30. Like I won't do appraisals at certain times. Like there's a point at which you can't, like you can't do that at the start. Like I always made an effort to be the first car in the car park and the last one to leave. But now I'm, 5 o'clock, 5:30, I'm at home walking the dog down the beach. Like, so it takes time, but it does get enjoyable. And for the first, like this is probably the first year I've really found it properly enjoyable, enjoying, the business, the chase, the competitive nature on it, because it gets easier.
Yeah. Did you hear what my vision was for Brucey coaching when I started?
Yeah. Healthier, happier.
Yeah. My vision for people who are in my community, for everybody listening today, for anyone I coach one-on-one or in a group, my vision is to make those agents in my community happier, healthier, and make the millions in commissions.
Yeah, I was saying to a mate of mine who's also an agent that you coached the other day, like you're doing this for a long time. Like personally, I don't like working Sundays. Like I work, if I have to, I will, but like I made an effort not to. Like, and I think you've got to understand like your why as well, like why you're doing it, why you want to do what you want to do, why you want to make the money you want to make. And I think, like you said, like I think for me this year, balance has been really important. But there's a point at which you can start to have a bit more balance, and it doesn't happen like like in your 20s. Like you just make you all in. Like, do you know what I mean? And then it starts to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier. But you've got to have longevity, like because you see it and you see it. Like people burn out, really quickly. But I think you can do really well for a long period of time if you can find that right balance.
Yeah, it is a marathon. I'm conscious of your time, James. I want to ask you one more question. And, mate, I want to say thanks too, because I know how valuable your time is. I found this really helpful, actually, because I know you and I work closely together. I'm appreciative of it. But it's actually kind of good to hear some of these, your journey, which I think has been great. I mean, the guy started at 23. He had no mentor, no real strong coach. He was very loyal with Clint, still works with Clint today. Any area in the East is where he started. No real database. Grinded his way through 5 to 7 years. Started to get some traction 4 years ago, from my recollection. Improved his database. Improved his buyer servicing. Built his team from 1 associate to 2 associates to 3 associates to 4 associates. His average sale price when I started working with James, I think, was about 2.2. It's doubled. His average sale price now this year, James, is
over 5.
So his average sale price has doubled in 4 years, and his commission has his commission is almost, it's 2.5x from 1.5 to high 3s in 3-4 years. So, mate, it's an awesome run, and I know you're still a student of the game, because you still love learning and knowing what everyone's doing, and how can you get better. And I think that's what's made you successful. Last one, mate, before you go, which I know is helpful for others. You get a listing call, or how does someone like you? I mean, it's probably easier for you to approach a listing these days with your track record now, and people most people know who you are. How would you, if you go back 5 years, how did you approach a listing opportunity when you were selling 30 or 40 a year?
It's very different. Like, I think you asked me that question probably about 5 years ago, like the listing call, and like I never had a listing call. I never went in prepared. It was very much off the cuff. It was obviously like a lot of those appraisals and opportunities were people that I had built relationships with, but I was still competing on them. I lost a lot of opportunities by not being prepared enough. Yes. I think a very experienced agent, I said to you the other day, in the eastern suburbs, who sells like a lot of top, like high-end properties. He said, mate, you've got to realize this is a serious business, and the quicker you learn that it's a serious business, the quicker you're going to get to where you want to get to. So I think off the back of that conversation, like in the last probably 6 months, we've had our best like listing to in ratio, which is probably like at 75-80% at the moment, like back end of this year. We're just going in very prepared. Like, and I think we're going with case studies. We find out, often I'll never ever talk an agent down, or, like I've been lucky enough to work with some really good agents that have taught me a lot, but we go in prepared with case studies, our case studies, different case studies of competing agents, how we differ, how we can benefit that particular person. But I think the main thing for us is just preparation. And that's really, to be honest with you, it's different from 5 years ago, but it's different from 12 months ago. We weren't going in prepared enough. Yeah. We're going in a lot more prepared now. And that's what we're saying, like we're securing a lot more business.
Yeah, it seems like you just keep sharpening the sword every year. and as a result of sharpening the sword and getting a little bit better in all these areas that it's one. Can I give you one more question, mate?
Yeah.
I'm interested in this lifestyle component because you're 33. So you've gone through the eastern suburbs in your 20s. You've had success over really good success over the last 4 or 5 years for your age. You're fit. You train a lot. I know that. You exercise a lot. How important, mate? And this is my last question before we say goodbye. How important is the lifestyle component to your overall success, or for a young agent coming through, or for any agent? How important is getting the lifestyle component right?
I think massively. Like, I train every day, like Monday through Saturday. I was probably particularly early to mid-20s, probably went out a bit too much and that sort of stuff. It probably impacted work. I've definitely sharpened that up a bit in the last couple of years. I know you think I can get a little bit better in that part of the lifestyle component, but I think I've meditated we did a meditation course with everyone in my office probably about 8 years ago. I've continued to meditate like almost every day since then. It was twice a day. Now it's once a day. I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. I live, 2 minutes away from the beach. I've got a gym at home. I train at home, walk down the beach, have a swim. Like, I think for me personally, look, everyone has different things that work well for them. But for me personally, I need to do that to set myself up right. Otherwise, I'm just not the right, not headspace, but I just don't have the right energy throughout the day. Yes. But I also think it's one thing I've learned a lot better. I used to probably burn the candle a little bit and try to do too much. And it's something I've worked on with you, obviously, just not overdoing it and not trying to overtrain, trying to, realize you're not training for the Olympics, you're training to stay fit. Yes. And, just eating healthy. But when you need rest. Like, I just went away for 4 days up to Palm Beach over the weekend with my family. Probably not the ideal time of year to do it, but I was exhausted last week. So I had 4 days off. And I think when you get to that point, like I said, it just becomes more enjoyable because you can do that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Mate, I'd love to have you on. So thanks for your time and wisdom. Congratulations on your success.
Thanks, mate.
You're very coachable. You're someone who's always taken on feedback, wanting to know what the next level looks like. You embrace it. You love the challenge. You get hit in the mouth. You get back up. And as a result of that, mate, you're now having your best period and listing, better than you've ever listed. So, well done. I'm going to let you go. So thanks for coming along today.
Thanks, mate.
Look, have a great weekend.
Man, thank you, mate.
Cheers.